get started. Justin, nice to intro you. Justin is a manager, studio finance and strategy and projects studio finance strategy and projects. I have a hard time getting your whole title out. At Warner Brothers Discovery. Had 10 years and more in film and TV experience. Graduated from VCU and UCLA and is an excellent mentor and coach for us at ArtBound Initiative, helping to coach some of our students on portfolios and also on their industry interests and understanding their careers. And I'll let Justin do a full and proper introduction of himself in just a minute. Who am I? I'm the CEO of ArtBound Initiative. We're an internship program for aspiring, TV and film producers, editors, and content creators, among other types of creative degrees. So if you're looking for something else, there's also that. I'll go to it in full detail. Why we're having this discussion. We place over 1,000 interns, in the industry through our program. So it's, our goal is not just to do that, but also to help you understand, excuse me, let me pull this over, help you understand like what's out there in the industry. What do these jobs look like? How do you, get into those types of roles? What are other people's journeys like? Because I always love hearing the variety of journeys that people have. It's never linear. It's rarely linear. So it's really cool to hear how people got into roles. And that's why we do these chats. And as I mentioned, just a quick little agenda for how we're going to do this today. We're going to talk to Justin about his industry journey, how he got there, and a little bit more detail and some questions that I have. And then we're going to go into a few minutes of just talking about ArtBound Initiative so you have the context. And then we're going to do an open Q&A for Justin and finish that off with about half an hour of the rest of the session. All right. So let me stop sharing here. Excuse me one second. Cool. So Justin, good to see you again. Let's just get started. I mean, you know the deal here. Let's just get started. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and a little bit of your journey of like how you got into the industry and how you got into Warner Brothers. I think probably that's the big burning question here. Like, how did you get this job at Warner Bros? Because I'm sure that's what everybody here is for, is to try to figure that out for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm still wondering. Sometimes I just walk around the studio a lot and I'm like, it's crazy how this happened. It was not my plan to work at a studio. But I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. So all I knew out there was what's out there. I went to school for theater and psychology. And then I minored in creative writing. So I knew I wanted to work in the entertainment industry. Um, I figured, all I really knew was, acting, directing. That's really, writing. That's all I knew about the industry from Richmond. So once I came out to LA, that's when I really learned, there's a ton of different things out here. But my first thing as soon as I came out to LA, 2 weeks after graduating, um, was really just trying to get into the industry. I'm competing with people like you all who, are in school for film, it's different scenarios in LA. A lot of people are born into the industry, so super hard. So you all are already on the right step for this program because I quickly realized I need at least an internship to kind of learn, get a footing in LA. So that's the first thing I did. I went back to school. UCLA has this extension program where you can do like certificates or one-off classes. I did that, business and management of entertainment. Didn't have a formal film degree, but that gave me like a little bit of a foundation. But most importantly, it opened me up for internships. Intern at a production company, intern at a talent agency. And that's where I really learned like what's available within the entertainment industry as a whole. Entertainment lawyers, managers, agents, um, producers. That's what I really learned, what producers do, executive producers. So opened a whole new world to me. Warner Brothers is a whole different story how I got into Warner Brothers. Um, but yeah, overall, I got in through the back door. I became a tour guide and worked my way up to where I am now, which is finance manager for the studio. And basically, what that means is everything that makes a studio, that makes productions willing to pay that premium cost. You have your grip, you have your set lighting, costumes, property, sound editing. All of those things are all within the studio. I'm the finance manager for all of those here, London, and we have two studios in Los Angeles, one that opens up next year. So, yeah, fun stuff. That's the abbreviated version.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. It's always a great story, and I'm going to dive into a little bit more detail here because I think it's important for everyone on the call to realize like how they can kind of transition their careers in a way. I think something that, I'm not sure if everybody picked it up here on the call, but something that you did, and I know about you that's really interesting is that you transitioned your career twice. You went from, theater into, in psychology, as you mentioned, then getting into, production, film and TV, and then switching into finance, which is also a career that I would think would really need like a full degree and master's in finance to be working within finance at such a big company. So it's really incredible that you've been able to transition this twice. I think what would be interesting for me is if you could explain a little bit about how you made those transitions each time. Like, how did you go from studying theater and psychology to getting into film and TV and make that transition? And what were some of the skill sets that you needed to do it? And then same thing for into finance. Like, how did you then leverage that to get into finance? What were some of the skill sets or, some of the experiences that helped you transition into production and later into the finance strategy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I always leaned heavily on my theater degree. I know it has nothing to do with finance, but I always say that going through theater, it helped me with public speaking. It helped me with confidence. It helped me with dealing with rough situations, big personalities, all of these things you deal with when you work within theater. Um, so yeah, that's what I leaned on. Coming into Warner Brothers, that transition again started with theater. The tour guide situation, I came across that, and the interview process was to audition. So you come in, you pretend like you're a tour guide talking about your favorite, TV show. So that I was like, I have a whole degree in theater. This was my test for myself. I was like, if I cannot get this job that I have a whole degree in, I probably should go back to Virginia. This was my test. So I got the job, but from there I kind of leaned on my past experience. So at the time I was managing a Marriott hotel. And when I was talking, I came across basically my whole scenario was I just need to get into the studio. Once I get into the studio, I can talk, I can finagle my way into something. And so every day I would come into work as a tour guide. I never gave a tour, but I worked in like retail and stuff like that. But I would go to the commissary, which is where everyone from the studio goes to eat. And I would just talk to people. And I became friends with the studio operations VP at the time. And from that, I was able to get a temporary job, which I was able to make permanent. But the whole way I was able to get that was leaning on the hotel experience. Studio operations is basically leasing out the stages and backlots. So I kind of took the experience from the hotel. I'm renting out, hotel space. People would come there, they would have weddings there. So I had special events, experience. So I was able to just take that, kind of work it into our conversations from day to day. And when a position became available, I just slid in there. For finance, it was a little bit different. I worked in studio operations for about 6 years. So I knew everybody at the studio. The cool thing about my job at the time, as manager of leasing, was that any production that wanted to shoot at Warner Brothers came through me. I would show them around. I would become the salesman. I would deal with the money. So I got to meet a lot of different productions. I got to work with everyone across the studio, grip set, lighting, costumes, publicity, everyone. So when finance came about, I went back and got my MBA. I was able to just say, hey, I want to go into finance. And studio operations had a finance role available. We just went through a restructure. Someone got laid off. Another person didn't want to get promoted to take on new responsibilities. So they offered it to me because I knew everyone across the board within studio operations already. And I was working towards getting that finance MBA. So I wasn't even done with my MBA when I got the job. But just because I was able to, know the environment so well, the numbers part, was just an addition that I could learn over time.
That's awesome. And you just slipped in a tiny little thing there, which I'm going to lean into just a little bit more. You kind of slid it in without anybody noticing, but I think you've been really fluid with your career, like in terms of letting it kind of take a journey, in a particular direction that, you've been quite open towards is what it sounds like. I don't know if you feel that way. But that's definitely what
Yeah,
it sounds like, is like just kind of like chatting with people, seeing how things go. I'm interested in that. Let me kind of go towards that direction and see how things are there. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, my whole thing is my whole goal overall is to be my own boss. And for me, executive producing for me at this moment is what being my own boss looks like. Before it was acting. I felt like actors were their own bosses. I worked at a talent agency. I quickly realized that is not the case. So executive producing is my overall goal. So everything, everywhere I move, it's how can I take experiences from this avenue and apply it to that overall goal. So that's why studio operations, being a leasing manager, that was cool because I learned the studio inside and out as far as the production side. And then I realized I don't know the back end side of it, the finance part. So that's why I went into finance. So I would get that full 360 experience. So,
Okay, so you have this, I didn't know this about you actually. So you have this kind of like true north type of goal, which is that you want to do, executive production, right? Executive producing. And you're seeing all the different skill sets that are required for it and are going to be useful for it. And so you're taking your patience and time throughout your career to like build and master those skill sets so you can get to the stage that you want to get to, right? I can't wait to see,
exactly.
I can't wait to see your name on a movie and be like, I know that guy.
Exactly. No, it's fun. It's fun. It's I mean, I respect all the people I come across that more linear, they
Yeah.
born with money and they can just attach their name to a production or they have an idea and make it happen. That's not me. I wasn't born into money. So mine is it will always be that resourcefulness route of, learn as much as you can, meet as many people as you can, and then figure your way out how to make things happen. So
That's great. I that little piece that I wanted to lean in just slightly more on is that kind of one step back and two steps forward. You mentioned getting, laid off and then getting another role. I think it's really important to learn how to adapt and to have resilience, because things are not always going to be, butterflies and sunshine. It's going to be difficult times. And it's going to be things that are setbacks also. And I think it's pretty amazing that because I remember that time where I was like, oh, Justin's not in Warner Brothers anymore, and then oh wait, he's back in Warner Brothers so quick, and you were able to really like navigate your way around that situation. So I think what would be great is if you could just share a little bit more. Sorry, it's not part of the questions I sent you before, but if you could share a little bit more about like your resilience towards that, like what was that like for you, and how did you adapt to that situation and just continue to like persevere through it.
yeah, it's that resourcefulness. I mean, me, it was literally okay. I have a hard out date of my job ending. Let's see what else is out there. I had applied to a bunch of different positions within Warner Brothers. Um, and I got, offered positions for a couple of them, but they were lower pay. So I've always been open to, I was managing a hotel at the time. I stepped back, became a tour guide, which was minimum wage. I think it was like $11 an hour at the time. So I wasn't against it, but I was holding out for a situation. Um, so yeah, it was just putting my feelers out there. So I remember I think it was maybe the day before my last day working, I went and talked to everybody in studio operations, and I was like, "Hey guys, it's my last day. I'll probably be back in a couple weeks." That's what I told everybody. I didn't have anything lined up. I heard some things, but I didn't have anything lined up. But I put it out there. And sure enough, the finance director had reached out and he was like, okay, they didn't want the job. It was too much work for them. Do you want it? And I got I think it was a month of severance pay while they got all the paperwork situated and everything. And I just came right back. So worked out perfectly. Nice little promotion. So,
Amazing.
and a
Amazing.
break.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. I'm sure they were happy to like find somebody within the team who wants a role rather than trying to figure out how do we integrate somebody back into the company. And I think that's one of the interesting things is that um, I just remember when I graduated college, I was trying to figure out like what are the next steps for me, right? Like, and how do and you feel like the next step is going to be the end. Like, okay, whatever. I mean, I felt that way, and I'm sure a lot of students do as well, or a lot of people on the call. Maybe you didn't feel that way, but I was always like, okay, whatever path I pick, like this is my path. And so I was a little bit nervous to figure out like where I wanted to go and a little bit indecisive for that reason. Um, but and a bit impatient also. Like I always wanted to be kind of like in a higher up role very quickly. But I think once you get your foot in the door, once you can kind of like open that door up, you actually have a lot of mobility within industries, right? I mean, this talk is not about my story, but for my story, it was through hospitality and then moving up. I mean, you went into hotels. I was also within restaurants and hotels and getting into management. And then once you have management experience, that becomes very transferable across industries, just learning how to manage people and learning how to deal with clients and other types of things. So, I was able to transfer it into tech and then into education. So I think that getting your foot in the door is really important. And then being able to navigate things once you're there, you have a lot of opportunities that really branch open for you. But getting that door cracked open is the hardest part. And sometimes, just like you did, is not the front door, right? Sometimes it's like the back door or a side window or just get yourself inside that house, right inside that building, one way or another. For you, it was becoming a tour guide and making $11 an hour, but look at where you're at now. Like that totally paid off, right?
It
Um,
did.
so let's talk about like some advice for yourself. I think I'd be interested to know, if you were starting your career out as a college student today, like how would you approach that and what would be a piece of advice that you would give yourself? Would you do the same exact things that you did before looking back? Is there something different that you would tell yourself now, at this stage, maybe with a different, with a different economy or I'm not sure what situations have changed, but what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like so coming from Virginia, it's very much you work hard, people notice, you get promoted. It's very, steady. In LA, it's you have to make it known what you're doing. If you're doing a little bit extra, you need to make sure people know you're doing a little bit extra. And that was something I did not have in me to do. But, after working a few years, it's like, okay, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. To move up. That's just the way it is. So that would definitely be something I would tell myself is don't be afraid to, be a little boastful. Don't be afraid to um reach out and let people know what you're doing. I didn't get promoted in studio operations until I reached out to like the head of studio operations and just emailed him and was like, hey, do you want to grab coffee? I just finished this coding boot camp. Thanks for, giving me the $4,000 for this course, blah, blah, blah. He had no idea I took a coding boot camp or anything, but I let him know. And from that, we started that relationship. So when I asked for a promotion, he, honored it. So little things like that. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to be a little confrontational. If you want that raise, bring it up. If you want that position, if you see there are different spots that could be fixed, don't be afraid to bring it up and voice your opinion. Those were all things that helped me grow,
That's
but
awesome.
took way too long for me to really take advantage of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, people don't know your successes or your desires until you voice them, right? Like we live with our own narratives all day, every day, for better or for worse, right? So, but others don't really know what you want or what you're desiring or what you succeeded at because they only see you for a moment. And most people are paying attention to themselves 90% of the time and not to others as much as we, think it might be the other way around. So really being okay to be vocal, both about your successes, but also about what you want, helps to
Mhm.
open up those doors, right? Like meeting people that you met with in the studio and then being able to um, say, hey, look, I want this role. Suddenly that desire makes people feel like they really want to work with you. Like, oh, you want to be in this role? Like, great. Let's see what we can open up for you. And I think it's especially helpful when you're showing a lot of desire because a lot of people also drag their feet in roles. Like they don't really want to be there. They're like, work. And that leaves an opportunity for people who are really enthusiastic about things to make it feel a lot lighter and more breathable for the hiring manager or for the director who's like, yeah, I want people who want to be in this role. And so if you're looking for it and you're really excited about it, let's see what we can do. So that's definitely an interesting way of kind of approaching it is just being vocal. I think it helps a lot. Yeah. Um, I have maybe uh, one more question, and then I'll get quickly into just briefly into our program, then we'll go to everybody else's questions here. Maybe I'm just curious, and this may not be your topic of expertise, but um, um, how should students think about AI at this stage? I know my head is spinning with the number of times I've seen AI on LinkedIn. And I'm sure that for students who are now studying or who are graduating, you know, it would be something that it's giving me anxiety, and if I was in school, give me even more anxiety thinking about how to approach my career. So, um, how should students be thinking about the shift as they prepare for their careers? Is it something they should be nervous about or excited about within entertainment? Have you seen kind of implementations of it in any way? Since you're on the finance side, maybe you're seeing kind of like what types of things people are utilizing. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely don't be scared of it. This, in my opinion, is amazing because everyone is on the same playing field, whether you've been in the industry for 20 years or you're graduating this year. AI is new. So everyone is learning at the same time. When I was in at UCLA for my master's, I was every AI conference they had, I was at because I knew this was the new wave. At Warner Brothers in finance, they're trying to implement AI. And then you have challenges. You're working at a studio, you have proprietary data, you have, how does AI work? Because you put it into the, AI, where does this information go? So there's still a lot that we need to learn. Yeah, but it's definitely something that's going to be a part of your life. So get ahead of it. It puts you on the same playing field as a lot of people. When I first came into the studio, I think I did something on PowerPoint for studio operations and it blew their mind. That's like Chat GPT right now for you all. It's like do something, make a spreadsheet with Chat GPT. It will blow their mind. Like something that was simple for me blew their mind. This is simple for you all. I know something like that um, if you're in college. Um, yeah, don't be afraid of it. Take every advantage, get ahead. There's a million different AI softwares out there right now. If you can pinpoint, a few of them, learn them, and then when you come into a business, help others to learn it, you're gonna be invaluable.
I hadn't thought about that perspective, and I like it a lot that everybody's on the same playing field, and so it kind of levels things in some way. I actually thought about it a little bit the opposite, which is that, it might make it more challenging for juniors, to get roles. But I think that that's a really interesting way to go about it. It reminds me a little bit of like how I think about social media. I'm like, let's get somebody younger to do the social media because they know what they're doing. Like, and that may or may not be true, right? But I think that I think that probably a lot of executives within companies will think the same thing, right? Like they don't have the time to go and play with all these different tools. They're going to be leaning into their team to go and figure it out, or to advisors or to other things to figure out how to implement these things. And they're probably going to be spending a very minimal amount of their time actually exploring. So,
Exactly.
if you can spend your free time kind of exploring different tools and understanding how they work, and at least understanding, what are the differences between these categories of different types of tools and how, what are some of the pluses and minuses and how to utilize them. If you put that on your resume and if you say like, hey, I really feel solid in these types of areas and I can help other people understand it, that could be something to leverage really well, that they'll need and will want to utilize. Okay, I'm gonna not take too much more time on my questions because there's so many good questions coming in, and I'm gonna try to get through as many as possible. But now I'm gonna rush through a quick presentation about ArtBound Initiative, really quick, and then we'll get to everybody's questions here. So, who we are. I just want to give you the context and background, and of course, also tell you about the program in case you're interested while you're on this call. We're a global career accelerator for creatives. What that means for us is that we're an internship program. We help students and recent graduates get internships within the industry, but we're so much more than just the internship. You can think of us like an extra course that you take outside of university that helps you really practically get your foot in the door and also build a lot of skill sets that you need to continue to further your career. Okay. So I think sometimes people misconstrue that we're just an internship, like we're just placing people in an internship. The internship is a cherry on top. It's what you get, as kind of a result of the program. I'm going to go through it in a little bit more detail, but we have different destinations that you can go to for your internships with ArtBound Initiative. So we've got 5 in the US, plenty of places to go: New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, and Austin. And then we've got London and Berlin, and then also Melbourne and Sydney. And if you want to do something virtually, you can do something virtually. And believe it or not, we do have virtual production internships because a lot of it is organization and planning and things of that sort. So there's some things that you can do virtually as well. We have lots of internships within film, TV, content production, and entertainment. So plenty there, across our destinations. Internship types that we help facilitate, within entertainment and media. I'm going to focus here because this is probably most of the people on the call. Talent management, working for talent management agency, TV or film production or content production or theater production, script development, and then everything post, video and sound editing, VFX, our music business, and then photography as well, which a lot of those skills are transferable between photography and film or TV production. And then sometimes can go towards like marketing, advertising, like whether that be content production over here or photography, or a lot of advertising needs a lot of production as well. So there are a few cool routes to go, like and explore your career within entertainment. What you get from our program, there's a few different components. We are a tuition-based program, and I'll get to that in a moment, but we are a paid program. So we want to make sure that you have a lot of inclusions and feel that you're getting absolutely the most out of our program as possible. That comes with ABI Academy, a guaranteed internship placement, our creative network, and then some dedicated support. Our ABI Academy is built for you to help prepare your career and to help prepare you for the internship. It's broken into 2 components. All of it's done online. Some of it's live sessions, some of it's content for you to watch, some of it is a bit of reading, but none of it is busy work. It's all boiled down from us placing over 1,000 interns within the industry. You've got profile and travel preparation. We're going to work with you on your portfolio, your resume, your interview skills, and also recruitment process. You'll get a portfolio review from one of our coaches. Justin is one of our portfolio coaches, so reviewing people's portfolios and giving you nice feedback and review. And then once your profile is ready, we start sending it to all of our partner companies. And then you're working on internship preparation, internship readiness, and industry coaching. So you're getting a lot of sessions about, how to succeed in your internship, how to find a job after an internship, like how to think about film and TV industry and how to approach it. And you can build some mentors out of those coaches as well. This is built for full-time students, so it shouldn't be overburdensome. It's not, going to take 40 hours a week. There's a few hours a week, but really meant to be there to make sure that you have success in your internship. Some of our industry experts, Justin on the call here, also Jen from MTV and Paramount, and then for other industries, Shutterstock, Aquent, which is a recruitment agency, Ralph Lauren, Omnicom. These are just a few of the coaches that we have within the industries. You do have a guaranteed internship placement through our program. We want to make sure that if you're going through the program, if you're paying for the program, that you can rely on us to secure something for you, and that you have something lined up. So internships range from 3 to 6 months. They can be part-time or full-time. It could be for academic credit or for experience, either way. One thing to note is that we can't guarantee a paid internship. We really wish we could, but the industry is still challenging in some places, and it's something that you'll face whether you go through our program or not. We're constantly trying to influence that in the company partners that we have, but it's hard for us to guarantee that it will be paid. So we just want to make sure that if you're signing up for our program, that you have that in mind and you don't feel duped, kind of like when you get towards the internship component. And then 60% of our participants have been hired post-internship within the internship that they've done for a part-time or a full-time role. So we've got plenty of company partners. I would say most are small to medium-sized agencies, firms, production houses, post-production studios, where you're going to get like really hands-on with the team and get a great internship out of that. Some of our company partners, I'm not going to go through all of them, but in detail, but Cadence Films is a production company in New York, Picture North in Chicago, another production company. WME is a talent agency in LA. And Friends is also a content production company in agency in London. Film-based production company in Berlin. Collider is a production studio in Sydney. And Truce is a production company in Melbourne. You can see that we put everything production here, but we have plenty of things that are advertising and other types of degrees as well. If you're traveling internationally, we handle the visa processing for you. We handle the insurance arrangements for you, the housing arrangements if you want to utilize our housing partners, you get in-city orientation, other things. So we're going to fully help you with that transition. If you want to go to London, if you want to go to Australia, if you want to come into the US, we can help you with we have to help you with the visa process actually in those cases. But you get full support from our team. And then you've got total dedicated support all the way through. We've got program coordinators that are going to help you with the curriculum component of the ABI Academy. We're going to be doing all the heavy lifting for you on getting you a placement within one of our partner companies. You're going to get that travel support and city coordinators that are going to help you once you're on the ground doing orientation and with events with all of our alumni and participants. And then you do have access also to our creative community. So all of our alumni, they're in an app that we have for ArtBound Initiative. This is a place that you can connect with other members, just like Justin was saying about building a network, just coffee chats with people, getting to know people, seeing where they're at. A lot of people have been through the program, 6, 7, 8 years ago and moved up within their careers. So it's a great place for you to start connecting with some others. And then we do events in all the cities that we operate. And just some of the alumni that you can connect with that have been through the program and moved on to amazing places, like Apple, NBC, CBS, Saatchi & Saatchi, Netflix, Google, TikTok, L'Oreal, like people are now working for those companies. And so it's a great way for you to be like, hey, what's up? Like you went through the program, I'm going through the program, let's connect. Our program tuition, we're about in line with course, a 3-credit course in the US. So our local and virtual program is $2,250. And that's if you're staying like domestically, whichever country that you're in, or if you're going internationally. Or if you're doing it virtually. If you're going internationally, it's $3,250 for the program for the additional support. It includes the 4 components. The one thing it doesn't include is like visas, housing, insurance. Those are all separate from our program fee. And something that depends on where you're going and what you're choosing to do. And we do have different ways to pay this fee. It doesn't not all in one lump sum. And we also just introduced grants, which we're really excited about. This is $500 up to $2,250 off the full program fee, off the program fee for eligible students who are needing financial support. You'll need to show documentation that you need financial support, and all that instruction is on our page. But yeah, this is a potential way if you are needing financial support to still be able to join the program without having to pay the full program tuition. Okay. Let me see. And how to apply, I'm just going to briefly go to that. You can go to our homepage here, artboundinitiative.com. I would recommend you first check out your eligibility if you haven't done this already. Fill out the information here and we'll let you know whether you're likely eligible for the program and then get you on a call with our team to go into more detail. And when and if you want to apply, you just go up to the application page here and you can apply through the instructions that are there. So I recommend you check out our page and you'll see our grants and scholarships, our application, and also our eligibility form for more information. Okay. And we do have other events coming up within film and TV. Somebody that went through our program and is now working at Industrial Light and Magic, VFX studio behind Star Wars and Jurassic Park and other things. So really cool one for you to join. You can just go to our homepage, go to events up here, and then find that event as well. I'm sure you found this event through that page. So I won't go into too much detail of how to do that. Cool. I'm going to stop. Sorry for speaking so quick, but I wanted to get through it so that we can get to some questions. And I saw, Justin, you're actually answering some of the questions here, which is awesome. I really appreciate you doing that. I'm going to go towards the top and start first with some of these. Nikki asked, what do you want to see on resumes? Are leadership positions that are not directly related to film of any importance, or should we include like only those that are directly related to film or paid. Yeah.
For me, I mean, if you're just starting out and leadership, like in clubs and whatnot, is what you have, yeah, definitely put that on there. Yeah, put that on there. We want you basically you just want to highlight your strengths. And if your strength is not in, having tons and tons of actual work experience, then yeah, put it on your leadership. But make sure we know what you did within those leadership roles that makes you, a leader within there. What events did you coordinate? Did you help, deal with the money? Don't just put, your title and leave it at that.
Yeah, I think it depends on you make a good point, which is it depends on kind of where you're at in your career, right? Early on, you don't have a lot to show yet, so you want to without like jam packing your resume with every tiny little thing you've done in your life, you want to select some things that you've done that showcase the skill sets that that role is looking for, right? And that's going to be helpful. And a lot of things are very transferable. You want to go, into I don't know, you want to go into production, but you've, only done in retail. Like, guess what? You've dealt with people, you've dealt with like moving things around all day long, you've dealt with being managed in a role. Like, all those things are still transferable skills that you had to learn and you want to continue to add, to your tool belt. I'm not going to get to every question here, so if I skip some, excuse me. I'm going to start off with those that are kind of more broadly applicable to everybody, so that we can, hit as many people as possible, and then we'll get to some more specifics, maybe about Warner Brothers and things like that afterwards. How did Alberto ask, like, how did those early coffee chats play out? Um, they said I have a hard time with coffee chat chemistry and finding common ground with people in positions where you want to be. So like networking is make I think everybody's like cringes a little bit when they hear the word, right? Like, oh, networking. I like coffee chats a little bit better, but like how do you do it without feeling forceful? Like how did you do that when you were you know, working as a tour guide?
Yeah. So yeah, networking was hard for me. I was a theater major, but I was still shy. I still hated talking to people, especially when you went to networking events and you are there to network. Um, but once I realized, everyone's there to network, everyone's feeling a little bit awkward. Everyone probably feels the same, right? I was like, okay, let me just walk up to someone and just start talking about something that totally irrelevant. And I just put myself out there. They were like some, what were there, commercial award shows that no one in studio operations wanted to go to. So I raised my hand and said, "Hey, I'm the lowest entry level person here, but I need practice. I need practice networking. No one else wants these tickets. I'll take the tickets." So I went, and literally it was me throwing myself into the deep end, and I had my little business cards. I gave one business card out, but the fact was I went out there and I chatted. Like I chatted and I only handed one out because one person asked for it. But that was like my entry. And so it's, oh, I'm just chatting. It's literally just chatting. Make that connection, connect on LinkedIn. Later, start the official networking part of, hey, this is what I do, all of that. That was how I kind of broke myself into it, my icebreaker, you can say. Don't talk about work until they started. Then okay, they started it. I'll continue talking about it.
Yeah.
But super hard for me
So you had
starting.
something else to like help initiate the conversation that wasn't like, "Hi, I'm Justin. Like, who are you?" You're like, "Hey, I have this task that I need to do." And I think also, Alberto, like a good way to do that as well is to ask questions about the other person. Um, you know, it's amazing how much people open up just by asking questions and just, "Hey, so what do you do? Oh, that's so cool. Like, how did you get into that role? Oh, tell me about that." People just want to talk about themselves naturally, and it makes you look really good because they're really interested in you all of a sudden. So good little psychological trick, and I think it's really in a very effective way of networking because they'll remember you and you learn a lot about them in the process. So it flips a script where you're not saying like, "Hey, I'm Ben, and I was wondering, could you give me some advice? And I want to, to talk about me. And they're like, I don't have time right now. I got to get a coffee. I got to go work on these other things. You start talking to them about themselves. And then you can later leverage that where you're like, connect with them on LinkedIn. Hey, thanks so much. I loved hearing your story. Um, actually, I'd love some advice at some point. I've been thinking about this, and this. Would you be happy to grab a coffee and give me a little bit of advice if you have the time? Second thing that people love doing is doling out advice, right? So if you're not saying, this is what I need, do you have it for me? But you're starting off with questions about them and then you're moving into asking for advice, you'll really stand out for them actually. And it's pretty easy once you try it. Once you're like, oh, that worked out really well. But definitely make the connection on LinkedIn. Definitely follow up. And definitely, if they give you advice, set a calendar reminder to talk to them about how that advice impacted you, like a month down the line or 6 months down the line. I loved your advice. I implemented it and I did this, and this. It's amazing how rare it is for people to do that. So when you do it, you immediately stand out. And it's like just a really easy way to separate yourself from the crowd. Because nobody does it. Or only a few. So let me kind of scroll down here really quick. What qualities or experiences make a candidate stand out when applying for Warner Brothers internship? And there are some common mistakes applicants make that could hurt their chances?
Oh, great question. Honestly, enthusiasm. The thing about having interns is that it's fun for us to have interns. Like we're excited to get the new interns and show them around the studio and teach them things. The worst handicap that people give themselves is trying to sell themselves on what experience they have specifically for that role rather than sell themselves as who they are as a person. Like I love to have people come in and just chat about, oh, I was able to go to the gym. I made time to go to the gym before I came to this interview. Little things like that. Just personalize it a little bit more. Just because with interns, we're literally taking you under our wing. And then it makes our job easier if we know who you are. Like, tell us what you want to do. If you are applying for like an ad company, but you want to be a producer, like a film producer, it's not exactly direct, but still over here, if you tell me what you want, I can find different avenues within this company that can apply specifically to what you want to do. You still selling yourself as a person rather than, just that job. So have fun when you go into these interviews, talk about some of your hobbies, throw it in there. All of my interviews I go to, I always talk about Red Lobster. I used to work there. I make sure they know I was a server because, in my opinion, if you worked as a server, you're set. If you can multitask, remember orders, deal with people, smile, continue for 4, 5, 6 hours straight, you can do anything you're applying for as an
Or,
intern.
or 15, 16 hours straight if you're on a double. Uh,
Exactly, exactly.
and that's great. Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about like showing enthusiasm, right? And how people want to hire and work with people that show enthusiasm. I definitely think that it's normal to want to be further ahead than you're at and to want to be like two steps further. But being kind of like upset about your current state it really shoots you in the foot instead of being like, hey, you know what? This feels a little below what I want to do, but I'm gonna put my all into it and I'm gonna like act as though, I'm the highest paid person in the room and I'm coming in here early and I'm like putting a smile on my face, etc. Because it's such a short period of your life to do an internship and you can really stand out a lot. Again, maybe 10% of people do that, 20% of people do that. Maybe in companies that are getting a lot more applicants like Warner Brothers, maybe a higher percentage, but you know, it still is not that hard to actually stand out because there's a lot of people that don't want to put in that little extra bit here and there. Yeah. Um, I do like kind of take that away from hospitality because you and I both worked in hospitality and hospitality is all about like how can you surprise somebody with experiences without it being over the top or without, just little things, right? Like somebody comes into the restaurant for the second time ever and you're like, "Oh, hey, nice to see you again. Like, I see it's your second time here." And they're mind blown because they're like, "What?" how do you know that? You know, and it was so easy, right? You take a note on them and then you say it when they're there, and it costs nothing. But suddenly you've completely won somebody over. So how do you do those little things also within the job and within the role that helps people feel like, man, this person really cares and really stands out and and wants where they're at. Um, James asked, how would you suggest getting into the rooms with the right people to connect and network with if you're not already within the company?
Yeah, great question again. It's for me, one thing I wish I had told, undergraduate, fresh out of college, Justin, is to use LinkedIn. I am very ashamed that I always had a LinkedIn. I never used it until I started graduate school and found out really how much of a tool it was. Being able to research people, like really kind of stalk them a little bit. And so when you do reach out for that coffee chat, you know a little bit about them. You can drop that, hey, congrats on the award you won, this year, blah, blah, blah. I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. It like he said, it makes people feel special when you have done a little bit of research on them. Um, yeah.
I mean, great. And the fact of the matter is you're not in the rooms with those people, right? So you're not going to be able to do something that isn't real. I mean, I think what you can do is try to connect with some people on LinkedIn, try to follow up with some people afterwards. Like if you meet somebody, and also the other thing is you actually might have a lot of people in your circle that know somebody, right? The best place to start is with your circle. Like you may say, I have nobody in my circle that's in film and TV, but you will have somebody in your circle that's in film and TV, right? Potentially, I'd say maybe 90%. Because you ask your parents and you ask your parents' friends and you ask your friends and you ask your, you know, parents of your friends and you ask, your professors, right? Like your professors are the best contacts you could potentially have in the industry because they work in the industry, right? Like so oftentimes, so like leverage that, like do the same thing that I was talking about with others with your professors. They're not just there to teach you or to give you homework or other things. They're your into the industry and they're going to see who's doing well. I like this question from Dong. Honestly, I often ask why breaking into industry is the hardest part. Shouldn't it be the easiest part, just getting started? Like, why is that the hardest part? And I have something to say on that too, but I'll let you start, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, it's the hardest part just because it's a million other people out there, vying for that same role. Um, but yeah, it's just tough. And it's tough because you don't really know yourself what is out there. When I first got here, I was maybe applying very specifically to production related roles, right? Not knowing anything. I didn't know anything about studio operations. If I'd known there was a studio operations department, that was more along the lines of what I had experience in. I would have been applying for that, So you don't know what you don't know. And you won't know until you're inside to know it's available. I got into studio operations literally talking to HR, finding out that Warner Brothers had like a placement program. So you can go in and say, okay, these are my skills. And when different departments around the studio have different like entry level positions open, you can go fill them. It's like a temp agency. And that's what I did for about three different departments before I found studio operations. So I wouldn't have known that from the outside. So, yep, it's hardest get in. Once you get in, then you can talk to people. You have an HR department to talk to. You can talk to people at this, the cafeteria. You're in there. It's a little bit more easier.
Yeah. Also, it's just like supply and demand. You have a lot more people applying for roles than there are roles. Or if you take, and that may be true in general, but if you take any specific company, that's definitely true. Like I'm sure at Warner Brothers is different, but even for us, when we post a role, we get like 150 or 200 applications, right? For one role, right? So you're always going to get a ton of applicants for a role. So yeah, you're competing against a lot of people for those positions. So just as we said, like don't just try to knock on the front door. Go kick in the side window and see if you can get your your foot in the door, right? And get into the industry and just find another way in. Another way I think of breaking in is um, a lot of people just like easy apply on LinkedIn or easy apply on a website. And it's really hard to stand out when you do that. You get a ton of applications in and okay, first trench, I'm going to filter through those resumes and see who may or may not be, best suited for us quickly just because I can't interview 200 people. I'm going to interview 10 people. And so I've got to first filter out a bunch, you know, at the first stage and get rid of the ones that are not completely aligned to me. But if somebody walked into my office and was like, "Hey, what's up? I just want to meet you and see if I can get a role here," or mailed me something, or found me on LinkedIn and got a connection through somebody else and messaged me, the chance that I'm going to check out their profile and potentially interview them is much higher. So, I think finding ways to go out of the box a little bit to apply is good if you don't have those connections already. And then once you're in the industry, just leverage it as much as possible. Even if you're like, you know what, this is not the job I wanted, this is not the industry I wanted, this is not what I was thinking. You've got an opportunity there to connect with others who do have the connection. So just do it with a smile, do your best you can, and then, see if you can leverage that into the careers that you want. I think we've got time for about two more questions. Um, Alberto asked, when's the internship deadline for ArtBound Initiative? Next one is October 10th. But you can just fill in the eligibility form and then we'll let you know about all the deadlines and next steps. But yes, you can apply by October 10th for the next deadline. Okay, let me go to the next one here. Just want to find it because I like this one from Emily. How were you able to manage self-doubt or the fear of starting over with a new type of career?
Oh, great question. I think after moving to LA and succeeding and making it through a year, that kind of gave me the confidence I needed. I was like, I moved to I'm from Richmond, Virginia. We don't leave, we stay there. So for me, this was a big deal moving across the country. And I did it. My parents were horrified of me moving across the country, but I did it, got a job at Warner Brothers. For me, that was like, okay, I can do this. So moving into a new career, it was the same thing. It's just, I did it before, I can do it again. Also knowing entertainment right now and just being cognizant of the fact that entertainment or the entertainment world right now is very volatile. It's all over the place. We don't know what's going on, layoffs here and there, and just being, cognizant of the fact that regardless of where I am within the studio, there's going to be some challenges. So why not shoot my shot somewhere else? At least my resume is now a little bit more well-rounded. So if I need to apply somewhere else, I have even more experience. And that's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah. Um, and I think fear is normal. Like also imposter syndrome is normal. Like
Mhm.
if you're having it, it means you're actually in an environment of learning. So it means that you're slightly out of like what you're doing is slightly out of comfort zone of what you know. And that's a good thing, right? You want to be in that space. If you're, I would flip this and say if you're not having imposter syndrome, you're probably, you know, could push yourself a little harder in terms of what you're trying to do. It should feel a bit uncomfortable. And the interesting thing is like once you're in it for a while, you realize that this is actually true for everybody, like all the way up the ladder within companies, all the way up to the CEO, all the way up to probably the chairman and the board. They're also just trying to figure out stuff, and they may have built a lot of skill sets that help them do it more successfully, but they're also like learning things all the time that they don't know necessarily how they're going to navigate it, and trying to figure it out. So eventually you realize that everybody's kind of in the same boat, trying to figure out things and trying to learn. And like nobody's just sitting there being like, yeah, I got this 100%, right? So, it's normal and that helps to comfort, I think, in some way when you feel that way. So look, we've just got 2 minutes left and there were so many good questions here and we didn't Dylan. Yeah, sometimes even the CEO doesn't know what's going on. Well, they know what's going on, but they might be trying to not know what's going on with a certain situation, like trying to figure out like, okay, how do we implement AI into our company, right? They're also just like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? But yes, you'll figure that out as you work for companies that sometimes that's the case. Um, yeah, I just wanted to wrap this up. There were so many good questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them. But I really do recommend, all of you to, come into our next sessions as well and, join our other events. I'm actually just, sorry, getting a little distracted because I'm bringing up my LinkedIn, and Justin's LinkedIn as well. And feel free to, connect with us on LinkedIn. There's mine, and I'm going to bring up Justin's. Um, Excuse me 1 second. Feel free to, hit us a connection, shoot us a message, no worries. And yeah, it's just really nice to have everybody here on the call engaged. Justin, thank you so much for your time. Always awesome to speak with because I think, you have such a cool story and you have a really interesting experience that's not linear and it just like, it's really interesting to hear, honestly, like, and for such a big brand name too, you're like, oh, okay, cool. This is, this kind of demystifies it a little bit for me, and I'm sure for everybody on the call too. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Always appreciate the invite. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everybody, and hope you all have a wonderful evening, a great day. Check out our program, apply, fill in the eligibility form, join our other events so that you can learn from others. And I hope this was really useful for everybody. Thank you.